Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. We are gonna have to be very disciplined about only one person speaking at a time because of the audio and the it's important. So we'll try to run this through us to so I'm gonna call the meeting of the planning board for October 7th to order. Take a roll call vote. Gordon Brewster.
Here.
Peter Morton.
Here.
Mary Foley. Here. Sue Philbrook. Here. Sarah Creighton's here and Chris Olney.
Here.
Laura Tenney is out.
Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting of the task force to order. And again, we'll do a roll call. Richard Smith. Here. Mayor Mellish. Here. Let's see, Denny Hall.
Here.
Sandy Barbara Turner.
Here.
Our Morris.
Here.
Sue Philbrook.
Here.
I'm the chairman. Okay, we're both in
Okay.
business.
Great. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to review the MBTA zoning language in anticipation of hosting a public hearing tomorrow for October 28th. That's the primary purpose for us tonight. So you all received a letter, the copy of the letter from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. I think there were 4 material points. Mark, you want to just respond to those 4 points?
Okay, so the first item. Hold it out here, the first item had to do with accessory uses, so we had called out in the draft bylaw. That certain accessory uses for specifically for Beaver Dam district would require special permits, pools, fitness centers, community rooms. Those are kind of often typical accessory uses for large residential development, so they felt it really shouldn't, it's kind of essential components and should be called out as a special permit requirement, so we removed that. The next question that they had to
Should we just discuss,
Okay.
can we just discuss each of those in turn?
Sure.
So it's section 3 in the bylaw.
Number 81, line 81 on the.
Yep, thank you.
So I saw a little bit about this, and Sarah, maybe you can help us on this one. Swimming pools by the underlying zoning do require a special permit. So from the ZBA, so it seems to me that would still apply.
Except the ZBA would rather not have special permits for swimming.
Well, that's a different.
So we don't see that as, and if it's a big thing, if it's an indoor swimming pool, it doesn't need a special permit.
Right, but the fact is that today, if you were building 80 units in Beaver Dam Road and wanted an outdoor swimming pool, you would need to get a
Correct.
special permit from the ZBA. So that one's kind of moot, right?
Yes, because
And we had changed it to planning board for that district.
no, you had removed it
Right,
as
so
a
we've removed it,
requirement.
right,
So it would just be, they would still have to go for a special permit because it applies throughout the town.
right.
And it's not for the structure, but we don't call it out specifically, which is what they were concerned about. So we just removed.
So then the second 2, which is the community facility and the recreation.
Fitness
Fitness
centers.
center.
Yes.
Arguably, those don't fall under the definition of multifamily, right? So arguably, there would be some site plan review discussion
Mhm.
around that. And so again, I feel like I personally, having thought about this, seem like we are protected because the multifamily definition doesn't say multifamily plus community center. In actuality, they may be making the restrictions for Beaver Dam more strict. You could argue.
Well, I think, yeah, but taking it out, it just goes under site plan.
Right, goes under site plan review.
And
Okay,
that-
any other comments from?
I just want to make a clarity on the swimming pools. We don't allow swimming pools in the LCD currently. For the ZBA approval, it's a no.
That's because we don't allow residential.
Well, but
Well,
so in effect, by taking it out,
they can't have a swimming pool at this point in time.
probably technically you're right. But we're responding to their response there. Yes.
With respect to special permit.
Okay,
And then,
any other comments on that one? All right, number 2 was,
number 2 is, in the Beaver Dam Road sub-district. When they looked at the maps, it doesn't show the road extending all the way to the property. Now, although we don't have a frontage requirement for that district, they pointed out, well, they wanted to make sure that it has legal access. So I did go onto the registry and look up, and I think I forwarded to everybody, is the easement plans that were recorded at the registry for right of access to that property. And so that it does exist. So that information will be forwarded to the state when we submit our final version for approval from EOHLC.
okay,
So
and
Can
the
I just
third,
ask, is that, I didn't look at it, is that in perpetuity?
you have to,
it's in the deed.
yeah,
The deed says in perpetuity.
I think that probably he bought the 2 pieces of land at different times.
My only question is does the deed say easement in perpetuity?
I don't know.
I don't know, it's
I
an
think that
8-page
was-
document, so
It's shown on a plan.
it's also shown on.
If it's included in the deed, you don't have restrictions in the deed as to the length of an easement like that.
Okay, the third issue,
It's the easement. I mean, there's gotta be language that pertains specifically to the easement.
Right.
And that, I think to Mary's point, it should be in perpetuity.
So usually it's the other way around. If an easement is only granted for a certain length of time, say what the length of time is. Otherwise, you're granting as like our grants with an easement across his property. He's granting you those rights in perpetuity. It's just like if he gives me a deed, I get the deed of all of the property and everything that's described in the deed. So it would be only if there's something in the easement that accepts it for a certain length of time.
Right.
So if there's nothing in that easement, then it would be,
So you have the deed to submit to the state also?
not that I didn't pull up the deed, but.
Well, I think you probably need to submit both the deed and the
And
easement.
plans.
Yeah, I think to.
Mhm.
to
I think it's from the
satisfy.
70s. I mean, it's ways
Yeah,
back. You have to go back to several, I looked at it too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we feel in your professional judgment that we're fine on that one.
yes.
Okay, thank you. On the and then the next one?
The next one had to do with the submission of the economic feasibility analysis.
Mhm.
So we did not submit the economic feasibility analysis when we submitted the draft zoning for review. And our draft zoning said 20% affordable. So the state, since then, we've received the economic feasibility analysis, which does justify the 20%. So that will be submitted along with our zoning for their review.
Did that include the sample projects?
I'd have to look at it.
Okay,
I'm assuming that our KG has done these for a number of communities, only have to assume that it does.
They had some pro
include-
formas in it, so
Oh,
presumably.
here we go.
Yes,
Pro forma scenarios, 80 units, 100 units, they have all sorts of
Yeah, okay.
things in the back here that they can. So.
okay, great.
And then the fourth comment they had just was an acknowledgement that we only need to zone for 559 units, not 585. So that's, and that was their fourth comment.
Okay, great. Any comments or discussion on the letter? Great, thank you. So now the next item is to review and finalize, I think finalize is kind of finalize the MBTA zoning language for the public hearing. Is the intention here. So this is to have a version that we will take to the public hearing on October 28th. And it's not the final language for the warrant, so we might get comments, or we might still review things or have others. Let's see, so Mark, I think Mark and I decided we would work from everybody's had the red line version for a while. That we would work from the clean copy so that we can kind of walk through it. So
He's gonna
if anybody-
have the next
yeah,
one.
I would love to see, sure.
Okay.
okay, we're gonna,
Richard, you need to-
Thank you.
I think I need
Yeah.
to. I do.
You are here, unfortunately, I can't share it with everyone.
well, it's posted online, right?
Yes, it is
Yeah.
online.
Oh, boy.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna take this one section at a time, and details are important, so we may have to make sure that we get these correct. So the first is simply the article language, inserting a new section 9.4 and amending the section 2.0 definitions by inserting new definitions. And amending the zoning map to incorporate the community housing overlay district maps. Any comments on that section? Okay, so let's take section 9.4.1 through the definitions. Anybody have any comments? Now, don't forget, this has been reviewed by Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. Presumably they read it carefully. But we also should read it carefully.
In 9.4.2.
Can you give us line numbers? I
You
think
need to
there's-
speak
I
up,
beg your
Sandy.
pardon.
Yeah.
You need to
Okay.
speak up for the
All
mic.
right, I'm gonna need my special, hold on line 27. Does the inclusion of or by special permit need to go since we've taken away special permit in the Beaver Dam? I mean, their permits, I don't know how the Conservation Commission and Water Resource District and all that are characterized.
I would. leave
Those
it
are
in.
special permits?
I would leave
No,
it.
You
I
would
think
leave
those are other.
For
types of
safety.
Permits, but I would leave it in because there are a few special permits that aren't for the housing, but are for other uses in those districts, so I would leave that.
Didn't the EO Chelsea letter say, for the accessory structures for the accessory uses allowed as of right, that we couldn't do that?
Didn't say that,
Yes.
but that doesn't mean we can't have special permits for
Probably.
others.
Well, other-
I mean.
Well,
Well, let's say the zoning was amended in the future to require a special permit for
Look,
any particular use, then
look at 9.4, look at line 81. And we have section accessory uses by special permit.
Right.
So we need to leave
Yeah.
that special permit wording.
But that's what
No, it says here, or accessory structures or accessory structures for accessory uses allowed by right in other sub-districts. In other words, if it's allowed by right, you can't require a special permit for it. But if it's something that is a special permit in other districts, you can require a special permit for it as long as it's not related to the housing itself.
Okay.
So,
For uses or structures accessory to multifamily housing. So we can't require a special permit for an accessory structure, correct?
We don't today.
Okay, I just, when we get to those, that section, I think we
You know, when
need
you
some
get to that
clarity.
section, yeah, we'll start with
Okay.
that, but we're here, I think it's okay.
Okay, are these, the district names are correct now? Let's make sure,
Oh, boy.
and that they align with the map. You'll double check that.
I had some comments on the definitions.
Okay, let's just make sure that those names of districts are correct. Okay, definitions. Mary, go ahead.
So, line 42, affordable units, we already defined that in our definition from 2.0 in our zoning bylaws. And it's different, so, and that's the same with affordable housing, so I don't know why we're redefining it here.
We only doing that if it's creates, if it's different enough that it needs to have a different definition for this particular section.
Our definition in zoning is pretty slim,
Is what?
So it's
pretty slim.
It also is
Not very
affordable
much.
housing we define, but we do not define an affordable unit. We are, in the 2.0 definitions, we do not.
Well, our 2.0 definition is a little strange because the term is affordable housing and then the definition is a dwelling unit available for rental. So
For sale.
what's that? Oh, I just didn't read the whole thing.
Yeah, you just want to, it's not just for rental.
So I guess my original point is I don't know why we're doing different definitions in different places. And then if we don't have affordable unit in 2.0, good. And then this affordable unit says a multifamily housing unit, so you could have an affordable unit
Well, that's
in our
because-
2.0 that is not a multifamily.
Right, and I think the point here is that this definition is for the purposes of section 9.4. So, therefore, it would be a multifamily unit, not,
At some point in the future, you can always true up those definitions.
right.
So, and with affordable unit, I would ensure that it references the SHI, as our affordable housing definition in 2.0 does. Because we want these on the SHI.
We
correct?
sure do,
Mhm.
but I will tell you, getting on the SHI is like getting into, the
I-
Baseball Hall of Fame.
I don't
It's
think
pretty
you
tough.
can put that in your zoning definition.
We do in 2.0.
And
It
I
says it's subject to a use restriction recorded in its chain of title. That makes it eligible for SHI. That's the requirement to make it eligible for SHI.
So I think.
But you can't require that it be on SHI because the town has to apply for that.
Mhm.
Okay, then we should change it in 2.0.
But
That's
that's
a
for
different-
future.
Okay, so maybe we can just put that on, can we just put that on a list, given we may need to just get to council to confirm that this, that it's okay to have these two different definitions, we're not gonna slightly different. Okay, other comments on other definitions?
So same with multifamily housing. We have a definition in 2.0. And in the 2.0 definitions, we clarify that they must be substantially connected to the other with fire separation assemblies such as walls or floors. So I think either we need to do the same definition here, or we just fall back to the 2.0 definition.
Well, we have to use the HLC's
Yeah.
definition.
We can't use that definition. It was for this.
I think town council pointed that
That's-
out, that we had to have.
Yeah, it's different.
So as a question, so do they have to share a firewall, or we have different standards in different parts of towns, different parts of the town for multifamily?
It sounds like we have different standards, because it can just be units on different levels. And I don't believe unless the fire code requires firewalls. I mean, the fire code might require it, I don't know.
Yeah, that was a big thing in recodification, so I'm curious why they
Right.
don't, okay. On line 47, it says, for the compliance guidelines, it says, at the last, it says, as further revised or amended from time to time. So are we saying that we could be voting in MBTA zoning? And the state could change the guidelines, and then, since we're an MBTA community, we just have to abide without going to town meeting vote again?
How are the compliance guidelines referenced in the zoning?
Well, it says here, compliance guidelines for multifamily zoning districts under 3A of the zoning act. Further revised, so what this is, appears to be saying is. Compliance guidelines that may be referenced elsewhere in the bylaw are the particular guidelines that are. Under section 3A of the zoning act, so this is just saying that that's what. Compliance guidelines that are elsewhere in here is referring to. So this doesn't say that we have to.
I agree with Mary that this is saying we have to agree to any changes, and I think we should delete that clause.
No,
And this is saying further revised or amended from time to time, and it's referring to section 3A of the zoning act. It's not referring to our bylaws.
but this is only the definition of compliance guidelines. This isn't saying anything that we have to abide by it, we have to follow it, and maybe.
It's just
I don't
saying,
even know if we have anything
I'm looking
else
for
in
them,
here
yeah.
that refers to the
so,
compliance.
so you're saying it's just giving meaning to if the phrase
Mhm.
compliance guideline is used, this is saying to what it refers.
So there is no,
Period.
I'm reading, wait a minute, waivers. The only place where the words compliance guidelines
What line are
come
you
up
at?
is on 502.
No.
On the applicant's request and subject to compliance with the compliance guidelines. The site plan authority may waive the requirements of this section 4.9, 9.4.9.
And that's the only place.
I
that
just did a search.
Yep.
Mhm.
And compliance guidelines only comes up there. So presumably, if the compliance guidelines are in the statute, we would have to follow them anyway. If they are amended.
No, not necessarily. We do
No.
changes to our zoning. For changes in the state zoning act. We don't automatically change our bylaws because the zoning act changes.
No, but we do have to comply with state law,
Right, but we
even if our
usually-
zoning is
we do-
contrary
Right,
to
but
it.
we
have
usually
that
do
law.
it as an amendment to our bylaws.
Yeah, so basically what the waiver is saying is that someone wants a waiver from the planning board, they can grant it as long as it doesn't violate the guidelines, so. As the guidelines change, and then you review the next development. And you make sure it complies.
So I think the question that is being asked is, can we strike as further revised and amended from time to time?
Right.
So. I think that's a question for council.
I mean, I think even if you strike it, you're referring to the guidelines, if the guidelines change, they change, still are subject to.
I think you should ask town council if we can.
Yeah, well, that's.
So I think
I
that,
will.
I think that is, if that's the case, I think it's an important thing to highlight that once this is voted in, because we've seen that the state has revised the guidelines already, that we are then beholden to what the state changes. So we might vote in 15 units per acre now, but it could change to 20 units, and then we have to abide by that.
No, I think the only place that our zoning says we have to apply, I think the only place that this zoning says that we have to apply with compliance guidelines is in under waivers. That's the only place that our zoning references.
That's a name, it doesn't really have any.
Right.
I just think this is a can of worms and we should try and eliminate the clause.
Okay, I think we can ask, council about that.
I think-
Because we've never, our bylaws, the only time we have to change things because of a change in the state law or case law is through the granting of a special permit. We don't do anything by right changes due to changes in the state code.
But we do have places in our zoning that are contrary to state law.
Right.
That we cannot.
But the changes are made during special permit process, not
Yeah,
through
but for example,
by right.
the water protection district says that there should be no ANRs in the water protection district. That's not right. That's not illegal.
Right, but
So anyway,
I think this is simply a definition.
yeah,
Right,
And,
Right.
you know, you don't have to adhere to the guidelines if they amend them from time to time. You have a separate choice to make. But it's simply making reference to the initial body of what was presented, and then they may choose to amend it. We may choose not to agree.
all right, we'll ask council about that. All right, other definition comments?
I had, oh, 61 sub-district. I just had a question. What sub-district allows a different use? Because it says the rest of the district by use or dimensional. Differentiated from the rest of the district by use.
They use by one of the three. Use dimensional standards.
or
Three things, and that should.
Yes, the point is they're all allowing multifamily use.
Actually, the Beaver Dam one is slightly different in terms of use, because it's,
But that's not a
It
sub-district.
doesn't say that it's different by use, it says by difference by use or dimensional
Right.
standards or developmental standards, and they're definitely different by those three.
Mhm. Is it material?
It says from the rest of the district by use.
Or
Or these other things.
Okay,
Do-
fine. I just didn't think we had different uses. The only other thing is I would recommend that we put in a definition, as I've seen in many other towns, for what a half story is. That seems to be a talking point in town for sure. And I think other towns clarify it with, pitched roof, certain amount of height.
I believe that is in our definitions.
Here?
In our existing.
in our zoning bylaws, there's a definition of that story,
Yes.
which is at the height of 4 feet, to more than 2/3 of the square footage of the level here.
Okay, so that would apply here as well.
And the next,
I don't
actually,
have any-
the next, I'm sorry, go on, any more definition comments?
It's not in definitions, it's later.
Okay, so comments on permitted use, and actually this is an example of where the sub-districts differ by use, where in B, line 68. The CHOD districts that overlay the general district, non-residential uses, allowed as of right, maybe combined with multifamily housing. That's an example of a sub-district that has a different use than other districts. Just to circle back to the prior comment. Okay,
I have a question if nobody else does. Could somebody clarify underground parking allowed by right, and are we allowing blasting for 1 level, 2 levels? What are we allowing? Because we're not triggering an earth removal bylaw or stormwater management.
well, blasting is a earth removal blasting within the existing general and zoning bylaws are allowed, whether you're building a house or a shed or
Any structure.
any structure. So how would that be different for parking structure that is set into the,
I think that if you look down at a line number 118, it says the structured parking shall be allowed only in Newport, Powderhouse District or Beaver Dam District.
Structured parking, I'm talking
Right.
about the underground by right. parking,
That's the structured parking.
you know, with two different things. This says parking, including surface parking and or parking within a structure, such as an attached or detached, above ground or underground parking. So I'm just trying to get a sense of what types of underground parking are we allowing?
So is there a problem with underground parking?
I'm asking what types of underground parking we're allowing. Are
Yeah,
we allowing,
about- Because
so you could go 2 levels down if,
you wanted to.
Wouldn't that be a structured parking?
well, we define structured parking as,
Actually, no, structured parking is above ground,
Above ground?
ground and above.
it's defined in the next section, so. Okay, so we have no limits on underground parking. That's my question.
No, you can.
Cost.
Cost.
Yes, cost.
That's not entirely true. There are requirements that structures be a certain depth, a certain distance from mean groundwater levels.
Sure, there'd be a whole bunch of environmental things.
Right, so, and that pretty much.
That's
all
not
our
what
town
Mary's
is-
asking. Mary's asking, is there any limit in this law to
In this
underground
law,
parking? No. But there are plenty of other limits.
Well,
Those actually have some around parking.
What?
Oh, slow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
So,
down.
Underground parking is a good way to reduce
down.
height and reduce mass,
Below the
massing.
basement level, yeah.
probably have-
Right.
I have another question. Why would customary home occupation be allowed as a right in all the districts except for Beaver Dam?
Because primarily, having a lot of people, probably if that gets developed, will have 20 or 30 unit buildings, so. Sure that not impacting your neighbors above, below, on either side. Requiring this special permit seems like a reasonable thing to request.
So our home occupation definition is customary home occupations, including photographers, artists, home cooking, dressmaking, millinery, hairdressing, software developers, other similar occupations by a person resident on the property. I think the thought was in a large, if you had a large development and somebody, had a lot of traffic, a lot of foot traffic in and out, or people coming in, dropping off supplies or that kind of thing.
Yeah, because it includes things that could have a lot of either customers
Yeah,
coming in and out or
hairdressing.
deliveries coming in and out. Most,
Yeah.
we had two different definitions. One was a home office definition, allowed that as a right. Under certain conditions, and then have home occupations is what the more impactful. But we don't have that yet, and we're not rewriting your zoning right now. We're just trying to work on.
So I guess to me, that would make more sense if we did it by, 30-unit building, but in the LCD, it could be 3 townhouses connected, and having 20 of those, right? So that's no different than development elsewhere in town.
But then wouldn't the planning board just issue that special permit without a lot of
Yeah,
pushback?
Right.
Well, but I, exactly, so I don't see why would we require a special permit if
Because,
it was the same?
so that it also covers a larger building.
And it still would be a very, even if it's developed as townhouses, it will be a densely developed area, so it is good to ensure that it's not impactful use. And again, these are things that we can, address at a future town meeting and change, and really wouldn't affect the viability of this bylaw for multifamily housing.
The other thing is,
We've done an accessory use.
to your earlier point, Mary, customary home occupation conducted in a dwelling by persons residing on the premises is currently not allowed in the LCD. And thus, we wanted to expand that with some guardrails.
Because we don't have housing in the house.
It's a
Right.
very unique parcel, which is not like anything else in town
Right,
or anything else in our zoning, so.
right. So I think it's the,
Clearly an outlier.
right, it's the fact that it's not allowed in by, um, section, the table. Or use table, okay, any other discussions around 9.4.3? Okay, let's take the dimensional requirements. I guess the question is, first, Mark, you made a few changes from the prior version. You want to just explain those?
In the prior version are as a result of the change we made to the map. We made the change, we changed 5 parcels based on the comment that we received on the past couple of few weeks. We changed 5 parcels that were in the Newport and Powder House sub-districts. We moved those into the Lower Pine Street district, which means there is a change in the number of units on those 5 parcels. So what happens is we get a loss of 14 units. So in order to make up those units, I made a small adjustment to the Reach and C Street districts and the Allen to Lincoln Street district. Now, some of these changes we already discussed and are in on our we have a chart where we reviewed the districts and a couple, but they weren't in this bylaw. So what we did is we changed the first floor base unit from 2,500 square feet of land necessary to 2,000 square feet of land necessary. And then we still have our 2,000 square feet of land necessary for units 3, 2, 3, 4, etc. So basically we just changed the minimum lot size to 6,000 square feet, and for those 3 areas, the Beach Street sub-district, the CC sub-district, and the Allen to Lincoln. So what that does is we pick up 15 units. We actually, the net is 1 unit. So that's the change, the chart here.
So are we gonna get a new chart that shows the
Yes, I've already.
big and
We should
the,
have it, yeah.
Yeah, I did not send it out. I want to not send it out until after tonight, but I will send out a new chart which will have the adjusted numbers.
So a new one of these,
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
So that
I
the impact of this is pretty subtle because it just changes a few parcels.
That's correct.
I looked through and looked at those, and from my point of view, it was kind of a non-issue. They were mostly condos. Although it did increase the density down there on Brook somewhat, but that's a better idea.
So as you think about the goals that we set forth, it's in trying to keep that, those couple of parcels in the scale of the neighborhood.
That's correct. It was specifically the comments about
Right.
the height on Pine Street, because the 2 properties are ones that are directly in front of Newport Park.
on the street.
Right on.
And people were concerned about that extra 10 feet of height directly on Pine Street. So those 2 houses were removed, are just in the regular Pine Street district. And then the height looking across Sawmill Brook from all the neighborhoods along School Street. And then they're gonna be looking at much taller buildings. So what we did is we those 3 parcels. Or put it in the Pine Street district, so it goes back to the regular height that currently exists. And so that's where we lose each property, we lose, 1, 2, 3 units. So that's why we needed to make up 14 units.
Mark, are you saying that we made these changes in response to public input?
Yes, yes, we did.
It's specifically regarding
Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Any other comments on that? Thank you, Mark. On the table, the dimensional standards, table.
So. I see you reduced the height from 4 to 3.5 in 2 districts.
Yes. That was the other,
But the height stayed the same?
the height stayed the same, but we reduced it from 4 stories to 3.5, which means it falls under the definition of a half story now, which means you can still have peaks, but you don't have, you can't do a full 10-foot.
Over the
Or-
whole.
So it's
building
more
pad.
visibility
Over the
because your
whole
peak
thing.
might be 45. Rather
Changes-
than your whole 4
Change-
story.
It changes the massing of the.
Yeah.
Changes the roof line, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roof line and makes it more interesting and less imposed.
So no dormers and all that, is that?
You can have dormers on a half story. Yeah,
So,
But not a box. It would be hard to get a
couldn't do a
Four-story
flat
box.
roof.
4-story box.
Yeah.
It would be uniformly. Maybe do a 2-story box.
It's typical around town of how people get to 3 stories, which is they do dormers and mansard roofs and campground.
Good change. Again, it's consistent with the goal of
Character.
the aesthetic and the architectural. Okay,
And it did not affect the density because you still build on that floor.
thank you. Comments on the lot coverage and setbacks? Table.
do we have a definition for base lot size?
It's minimum lot size. We have
Very
minimum lot
first
size
line.
in our
It's the very first.
zoning.
Base lot
No,
size.
we have a definition for base lot size.
Oh,
I think that's the MBTA zoning definition.
We might want to add that to our definition section.
It's used for calculating.
What do you think, Sarah? Go back and add to the definitions?
Yes, I think that's good habitation. That's good. So it does the MBTA zoning have a base lot or regulations have a definition for base lot size?
it's interesting.
I would guess they do somewhere. And
Okay,
By the
we
way,
should
as long as
create
on the
one.
base, you might as also include the addition of the library, because that's just as germane.
Right. Yep.
Fine,
It's the
every
same.
little thing like
Same.
that, I mean. it's
Yeah.
You don't
pretty-
need the base
yeah.
lot size for first unit at all, you can just have additional lot area. You can
You
have
just
just
say lot
lot
area.
area per dwelling unit.
No, that's only because of the fact that you made them the same number.
Oh, but Beaver Dam's different.
And Alan's moving, well, a few of them,
No,
I don't
okay.
think you need to be
oh, they're all.
defining
They are all
all
the same.
every little term.
Well. These are the numbers that will be used by anyone who is computing the number of units that they can build on a particular parcel. And these terms caused confusion within our group when we were first discussing them. And so I would question what people are going to make of them. Couple of years from now.
What's
So I
the
think it's a
harm
good
in
idea.
adding a definition of those two things?
Of base lot
Yeah.
size and additional lot area.
What about calling it first unit lot size?
It says.
But it's not lot size, it's very, to me, it's very misleading.
So then we should definitely. define.
Yeah,
It's a number that, it's a phrase that exists only for the computation of the number of
Right.
units to go into a
Yeah.
dwelling. That's the only reason it exists. Doesn't have anything to do
I
with.
think you
the
just
actual
defined, I think you
size.
just defined it.
Fine,
So is the
fine, it
building
is.
inspector doing the computation?
the
Does
person
that-
submitting it for a building permit would have to do it,
And then he does it to check it.
yeah.
Okay. So is it in the state code? Building
No.
code?
No, all you're doing is taking the total size of your lot, and dividing it by 2,000 to figure out how many units you can have. It's as simple as that.
Well,
And it's also.
not
Beaver Dam.
not exactly. You're taking your parcel, you're taking away unit 1 lot. And remember, Beaver Dam's different.
Right,
And you can't just divide by the 2,000. Because
Wow.
Beaver Dam's different.
Well, if be, under Beaver Dam, you subtract out the 4,000, divide the balance by 3,000.
Correct.
It's not very complicated,
No,
But
it's
it
not.
may be confusing.
but this wording is confusing.
Yeah, so let's add a definition of those two. That is clearer for the purposes of this. I don't think we need to do it tonight. If we have, I think we're do that before we. Hold it to-
We're including additional lot area because,
Mhm.
because anyway, it's at least as confusing as the
Right.
first.
Oh,
On the ones that don't have maximum dwelling units, are we saying that there's no max for what could be built except for what the lot size allows?
Exactly.
So do we have though, even in the modeling, like what's the max for every lot?
2,000 square feet is about how many?
Figure it out.
So why, I guess, why don't we have a max on these other ones?
Because they didn't run into, it was an issue. They were smaller lots.
Because the max depends upon the lots, on the parcel size. So you can't put a maximum in for the others. A parcel that is 2 acres has a different max than a parcel that's 1 acre. The only reason that you put in the limit of 5 and 4 is to force a particular district to have a maximum building size. And if we were to put that into these others, it would break the density completely. It would be back to.
So for instance, Brook Street, that's all one lot. And if you had a maximum number of units, you wouldn't be able to count all the units that are there.
Same thing is true for downtown and 12th.
Yes,
There are more-
Summer, Powder House Lane, Sawmill Circle.
So if you had a lot that was 24,000 square feet.
Yep.
Could you subdivide it into 4 lots? For 6,000 and you could do 5, 5, 5?
No,
It depends on frontage
you can only
requirements.
do 3 units on 6,000.
It's the smaller of that max number and the calculation from the base lot and additional lot size. So a 6,000 square foot lot would never be more than 3, even if the maximum size for that district was 5.
Okay, so you could do 3, 3, 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they had the
So-
frontage.
Okay, the
Frontage
right,
and all the other dimensions.
okay, so. Not that it's misleading, but, so we're not looking at, okay, 24,000 square feet, you can only build 5. We're looking at what could you subdivide that to, and the max would be 3.
Well, that's a conversation we need to have.
I think people need to understand that because they might look at these lots going up and down Pine or wherever and say, oh, okay, at least we know only 5 could go there, but really on some of them, it says the max is like 13.
Right, and
So,
I've made the suggestion that we should put another clause in with respect to subdivide. And point back to the original
Underlying zoning.
underlying zoning,
for subdivision,
yes.
Correct.
is that in, that's not in here?
No, that was my
Right.
suggestion, maybe yesterday.
we're gonna get to that. I think,
Well, then that bumps it to not by right.
No, it doesn't.
okay, so let's stick with the tables. I think we've suggested that we, need to, add a definition of base lot size and additional lot area. Lines 90, and then we will come back to this topic maybe right after this. 90, lines 93 through 121.
So I go back to line 105, and I believe that we had agreed to increase the maximum height for accessory structures to 25 feet like it is, you know, in the existing zoning.
Wait, did we skip over the chart?
I asked if there were any other comments.
So it's our 2.0 definition for height, the same as height here,
Yes,
okay. Thank you.
Okay.
it's the lesser of 2.5 stories or 35 feet. And
Okay.
accessory dwellings are the lesser of 1.5 stories.
No, how you measure height.
Yeah, it's the
The average.
average mean grade.
Okay, so Sarah's, common accessory structures shall not exceed 20 feet from the ground or 1.5 stories. So you say in our, under underlying zoning, it's 25 feet?
Yes, and we've discussed it at 2 prior meetings and agreed to make the change, and it just missed it out
Okay,
of the final version.
so it should be,
25.
Yeah,
so it should 25 feet from the ground or 1.5 stories?
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's what we
that's
have.
aligning it with our existing zoning.
Right.
Anybody object to that? Any other comments on lines 92 to 121?
Yeah, 108 through 109, we had agreed to delete the clause of and do not constitute more than 25% of the ground floor area.
Yeah, you're right.
We don't have that in our current.
Okay. Strike and do not constitute more than 25% of ground.
But then I'd say we, in our current zoning, we have a limit of 10 or 15 feet. So we should put that here. And these spiders, et cetera.
I don't know what the limit is. I
It's
don't
10 or
think there's a
15.
height limit.
There is
Oh, there is, yeah.
So why would,
10 feet.
Yeah, we should have that.
okay. So
Shall not
limitation,
exceed 10 feet. No.
right, so limitation, the height of buildings shall not apply to chimneys, ventilation, or towers, or other ornamental features of buildings
Mhm.
that shall not exceed.
When we do 10 feet, that's 10 feet from the roof
Yeah.
going up? Okay. Thanks.
10 feet above the roof, above
The peak of the roof.
the peak roof. Okay. All right, any other comments on that section?
What line are you going to?
I'm sorry, say that again, I couldn't hear.
What line are you?
Through 121. 120. Hearing nothing. Okay, let's, I think where we should take up your comment, Sarah, about the division of land, I think so. Rest gets pretty quickly, we're getting into, well, let's finish with parking, and we'll talk about that, your suggestion. So off-street parking section, 122 to 132.
So what are we, or do we not specify, I don't think we probably will get much, but for multi-use, mixed use parking?
I think it's dictated by the number of, this section is dictated by the number of
Well,
multifamily dwelling units.
But we wouldn't require any for,
well, mixed use is
That's the mixed use portion of part of the underlying zoning.
Right.
Whatever those requirements are based on, but the rest of it.
those parking spaces.
Retail space.
okay, because I thought that this referenced the 6.1 and then that was taken away, and so I'm just. It's just a known that it goes back to that.
This is actually just, we decided, I think what we decided is that by referencing 6.1 changed, then the parking requirements in this section would change, and so that we should list them separately. So that so it's deliberately, that even if 6.1 changed, that this would, I think we did take out the reference to 6.1.
And multi-use is not allowed by right.
Okay, any other
Under
comments?
this section of the zone. So that kicks it back into,
It is in the general district. 9.4.4.1. Districts that overlay the general district, non-residential uses allowed as of right may be combined with multi-family housing.
But in the general district,
it's no parking.
yes,
There is no parking, so.
well, that, the,
There's a restriction on parking in the district that's used.
So I just want to make sure we're bouncing back to our 6.1 table.
Commercial use would require the parking.
For any non-child use.
I don't know.
I mean, this specifically says parking for residential units.
Yes. The underlying, yes, I think you would refer, I think a commercial use would be this lengthy table of.
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah, do you want to bring up, before we get to site plan review, because I think, your question about the division of, your suggestion, of the division of units,
Right.
how would we hold that?
So questions, people have raised questions about subdividing lots, particularly on Pine Street, and how many units you could have. And under our existing zoning, Pine Street is District A, and then it's overlaid with D2 within 100 feet of the street. So if you're more than 100 feet from the street, you're at 22,500 square foot for a lot. If you're within 100 feet, it's 6,000 square feet per lot. But under the existing zoning, in order to build a two-family home, which is what's allowed in D2, there had to be an existing structure on the lot on May 6th of 1991. So therefore, it made no, you couldn't divide a lot because the second lot wouldn't be buildable because it didn't have an existing structure. So you were really limited to the existing frontage of the lot, and the frontage for District A is 150 feet. The frontage for zone here and in D is 60 feet. So my question was, well, can't we say that if a lot is to be subdivided, a lot that's subdivided must be in accordance with the minimum lot and frontage requirements of the underlying zoning district?
Wouldn't that already be the case?
No, I don't think so.
If you if you came and
No, if you-
divided it,
If you have
It's for-
separate regulations for frontage and lot size, then in an overlay district, those supersede whatever the
Yeah.
underlying district. So we have 60 and 6,000, that's why we have.
I see what you're saying.
60,000
and so that would supersede the,
Underlying district.
Right. And I personally wasn't thinking that way. So to me, it's an unintended consequence.
What about other situations in which a subdivision might make a difference, like, don't we have a maximum unit size over on C Street as well?
Right.
only- it's
See,
only where there's a
it's-
maximum.
Right, it's,
right,
yeah, it's the Pine Street and the C Street, which would be impacted.
Right, but does Pine Street,
Pine Street, I think, only has about two lots that have enough frontage to create two lots. Because you'd need 120 feet of frontage to create two lots, no matter what size your property is. Now, so there's 34 Pine, which could be divided into two lots. 30 Pine, interestingly, is on the corner of Deer Hill Road. And it doesn't have the frontage on Pine, but it has the frontage on Deer Hill Road to go to three lots.
Does that, we don't have a rule that says the frontage must be on the main street? or
No,
anything
no,
like
the
that?
rule we have is you must meet frontage requirements on both streets.
Oh,
And the reason is because the frontage requirements are more stringent than side and rear setbacks,
okay.
or than side setbacks.
okay, so where would, I think there's agreement that that's a good,
I mean, the state might throw it out,
but let's,
so be it.
how does that protect Tappan Street?
Tappan Street's limited to 4 units, and I don't believe that lot has the frontage to be subdivided.
It's pretty big. It's
Well,
pretty
but does it
big.
have a
It's
frontage?
19, I don't know, it's 19,000.
square.
Yeah, but what's the frontage?
Oh,
Yeah,
the
34
34
Tappan.
Tappan.
It's kind of a V shape.
Yeah, it's also,
But that's in District A. tap, 34 tap is.
So it has to have 100.
150 frontage to
Right.
subdivide. So it's a big
That big.
delta.
Right, big delta between 60 and 150.
What if they're on different streets?
It doesn't, it's not on, C Street.
There's no entrance from C.
No,
There's
it's
that
only
little house.
There's a little
the little
garage
garage
there.
there that's owned by the people across the street on C Street.
Yeah, and there's a long narrow portion.
So they don't have
you can
300 feet there.
Right along the railroad
No.
track.
Okay,
So how many units did you say could be developed on 30 and 34?
Well, it depends on how you divide it.
Or you could put
In
two,
order to maximize the space, you've got to merge the two lots. Because you could divide 34 Pine into two lots, which would be 10 units instead of 5. 30, you could,
But wait, so if you merge the two lots, you can only do 5.
Right.
no, if you merge the two lots and then subdivide them.
subdivide.
Because in order to have enough square footage on 30 Pine, you need the back portion of 34 Pine.
Yeah.
Because 34 is a bigger lot.
Uh,
It's very complicated.
yeah, but doable.
Yeah,
So how many at 30 pounds? Same two?
Well, it could be up to 3.
It's
you could
doable,
have
but,
5,
but there's a
The
maximum.
max, under what we have now,
Yeah.
would be 5. If we make the change I'm suggesting, it would be 4. Under current zoning, they could have 3 lots, because they could take the back of 30 Pine and the back of 34 Pine, and they'd have the 22,500 square feet.
So
If the
then-
front one was
So then
6,000.
they could do 6.
No,
On the special permit,
No.
they could do 6.
no, maximum 5.
No, under current zoning.
Sarah, what
Because
is
it's-
what's true?
frontage?
No,
Sarah, what's
Yeah.
true under current zoning? I'm very confused.
okay, current zoning, you have 34 Pine,
Yep.
which in order to do a 2-family,
That's what it's.
So that's only.
you have to keep the lot as it is, 1 lot. Okay, so
Okay,
you couldn't divide it into 2 under current zoning.
okay.
30 Pine, you could take the front part of that lot and subdivide it for a lot, but you could only do that if you have the back of 34 that you add to the back of 30 to get the 22,500 square feet. And so you can only get to 3 lots if you own both lots. Yeah,
Between the two of them.
yes,
Can I just ask, how did you discover that? Did you say someone brought that up?
somebody raised it. Those 2 lots happen to currently be owned by one person.
That's my next question, yeah, okay.
Right,
yeah.
so we're trying to be.
And so somebody raised it, so I sat down and I did the calculations.
Yeah.
It's really good that they did, because it's it's a hidden
Yeah.
trick underneath this
Yes.
maximum lot size.
Right.
Yes,
You think you've got a maximum
Right.
units per lot.
but there's a way to
really-
wiggle
Right.
underneath.
And there's very few lots that are covered, that are impacted.
There is a maximum of 3 units per building.
Right.
And so it would have to be small buildings.
yeah, there'd have to be a big building and a small building to get to 5.
Like one with 3 and one with 2.
Yeah.
It wouldn't look like a 10-unit building.
No. And it's restricted to 2.5 stories.
Yeah.
Is it a simple exercise
It's
to
a
know
townhouse.
which lots this affects? Because I think it's fair for residents to understand this.
I think we looked at Pine and we think those are the only 2 on Pine that are impacted.
So Pine and Tappan.
Tappan's not impacted. Oh,
impacted.
Tappan might be 2.
Did you say
Yeah.
C3 was?
Happen, the property itself only has 96 feet in front.
So that can't be.
So it
Unless
can't-
unless
it
you
can't be
purchase that
subdivided.
empty lot next to it. But
Which
the
would never
garage
happen.
from the
Yeah.
guy who.
Yeah,
owns it
he's not
across
gonna
the
do
street.
that.
Not gonna sell it.
It's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna
Then they could
facilitate
move the
that.
property line and get 2
Yeah.
parcels,
Yeah.
but that's the only way.
So can I?
Yeah, just a question, so that doesn't sound like it would be obscenely terrible if someone did that on Pine Street. Right, I mean, we are, in a sense here, we are after some more housing, so if it happens in one place, is that the end of the world?
I mean, in that area of Pine, you do have, you're very close to those brown buildings across the street.
Right.
Which have 3 units in each building.
Right.
And there's 2 buildings with 3 units each, and then there's a building with 2 units.
I think that issue,
Yeah, it's- yeah.
so I think you make a good point that we're not, Yeah, this is a
Eliminate,
housing, but on the other hand, the intention of the task force has been
The
the
cap,
counter to that.
Yes.
right.
And so I think in keeping with the goal statements and the intention of the task force, we should make in that section,
I mean, even if it
It-
only affects a few lots,
yeah, so,
it's you're tamping down
right.
the concerns of residents.
So I'm gonna suggest a amendment in the dimensional standards section, try to keep us moving along here.
Okay.
I think it will be
Hey, hey,
renumbered.
Hey,
Mark.
what line are you at?
Okay, I'm thinking it will be renumbered in the dimensional standards section, does that make sense, Mark? That will say, I want to make it an affirmative rather than a negative. The division of property lots in any CHOD shall meet the minimum lot size and frontage requirements of the underlying zoning district.
Say it again, please.
The division of property lots in any CHOD shall meet the minimum lot size and frontage requirements of the underlying zoning district.
Where does this go?
It'll go somewhere in section 9.4.5. I would suggest we kind of reorder these because it would probably go after 4 or something.
So it's minimum
Yeah,
lot size and frontage.
It would go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Frontage
Because
requirements.
that's what we're trying to
Okay,
be
I think that's-
consistent with what we were trying to do.
Right, I think,
Correct.
okay, any other,
I have a question, Josie.
And it was a friend of ours that raised
Just
it,
look at those two
just to
lots.
give him credit.
okay, let Gordon speak.
You just look at those two lots that Mark had up here and they're about, I don't know, maybe like 50,000 square feet. If you take out the two lots, if you put them together.
Yeah.
You could subdivide that multiple different ways. Is what you just said, would that limit the amount of development on there?
Yeah.
Yes,
that's
it's limited by the frontage.
Limited by the frontage, so this is
That
on,
has to be
this
100.
fronts on two roads, so they could. Conceivably, it'd be interesting to see, but this is the only one that is the situation, so.
As far as,
To Peter's point, is that a bad thing, though, if
Well,
we do
but-
get a little bit of density in one place?
Did you say?
It's 55,000.
That's 27 units.
Well, you do have,
yeah.
you do have
no,
height
no, no.
limitations and access and frontage.
You can't,
And, remember, this is a pretty stable neighborhood.
Yeah, it
There's
is.
a lot of single families and even the Windover things that got built in. It's a pretty stable neighborhood. And I think for us to turn our backs on the existing
Yeah.
zoning rules is really not great for us.
And we also have in that Newport Park and Powder House, like,
My point are,
bigger
is
density.
this a big deal, and apparently it is, and I agree. Like that, so this limitation, that verbiage will limit what they can do if someone decides to buy those two properties. They still will have a limitation of what they can build.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And
then
it-
it's
And
absolutely-
it's a limitation that's consistent with the character in the
Yeah.
neighborhood.
and
Just
with,
looking at it, I agree, the density
and
is.
what our thought plan was through this whole
Right.
process, by limiting it to 5 units, we were saying 5 units on a current lot.
Right.
And,
Yeah,
and this gets it closer to that.
Sarah,
Okay,
can I ask you a question though? So
Do you need me?
just listen.
Oh, okay.
so you're
There's
doing,
chairs.
you're doing the underlying zoning A because they have a larger percentage of the lot.
And we actually, we actually could say underlying zoning district A.
Well, no, because I'm
By
just
it.
curious if there's other lots in District D or G for that matter, that, the underlying zoning is 6,000 square feet, so.
G is 6,000 with the 60-foot frontage, so it's the same as the child.
yeah,
The
and
underlying zoning.
our zoning does say that if you are in 2 districts, your, the area you're most in is the
Governing.
governing.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question is that there could be cases where the underlying zoning would match what this dimensional standard is. And so then they could potentially subdivide, and so even though we say max 4 or 5 here, if you divide.
But the areas with maximums are in District A. The areas without maximums are not in District A, they're in general district.
Well, no, but.
Or a little bit of
Pine
Allen Street,
is
maybe.
In A and
What?
B, and C Street is in A.
But that's limited to 4 units, so that that's A, so we're restricting the subdivision on C Street.
Well, but I'm just saying, it's 4 for that, but if you subdivide, then you've got 2 4s, so.
But you've gotta have the 150 foot of frontage. Under
Not
District
that
A,
No property in
Okay.
that district.
with this
does.
change.
Okay.
And those lots I don't believe those lots have 300 feet of frontage. If they did, they could have subdivided them today.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
Well, and
don't.
only built.
Yeah.
2.
Right,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So we've made that change, thank you, do you need to run?
No, I think you're done.
Or more?
Let's
Just
begin.
one take?
Sarah, one last question. So that was discovered just fortunately.
Yeah.
You said C Street is unlikely to have anything that qualifies and would allow them to do that. Have we?
It does.
No, but it
specifically
doesn't.
Yes,
had-
we
Yes,
know.
we have.
Every,
We
okay.
know
Yeah.
it's that part.
But C
Yeah.
Street is also District A. So it would go to the underlying zoning.
And the.
And so the only way somebody could subdivide under the CHOD is if they could have subdivided today.
And the largest parcel in that district is the 34 town, and it doesn't have the frontage we just discussed.
Right.
Thank you.
So Mark, it seems to me, where do we put this? I would say it becomes number 4 and then you renumber 4, 5.
So it's after building unit caps. Yeah.
Somewhere in this list, there, or maybe you just put it as
Nine
number.
point four
or put
point
it as,
four. No,
Or just put it as,
9.4.5.
I think Sarah was suggesting after line 97.
well, I was suggesting it as part of 9 point.
So I'll make it number 4 and then renumber accessory.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Right, great, that was a good catch, Sarah. Or whomever, okay,
That's great input from residents.
yeah.
Response to resident input.
Keep moving, any comments on the site plan review section? That is,
I do.
okay,
So this was a question I raised to the task force, hoping we get town council input, is after doing a lot of research. For as of right, site plan review is limited to the use, and thus if the use abides by the bylaw, site plan review must be accepted. So the by right goes to the building inspector.
No, but,
So if you, I'm still speaking.
sorry.
There's been court cases and I can send you all the links, happy to. The point being is that I think it's very important, and I have a good town council review from Belmont that studied this as well for their MBTA overlay, that site plan is very limited. And so when we're taking things like the water protection overlay district, in the Beaver Dam area, earth removal, a touch of floodplain in the general district, and we're not, and stormwater management, we're not doing any special permitting of that. There is no enforcement in the site plan for those types of things. We can regulate vehicular access and motion on a site. We can look at some lighting. We've actually taken out the views and vistas section in here for site plan. So I think it's just very important for people to understand that site plan is not going to have a lot of say.
That is not true.
And I would love town council's opinion on it.
Well, we can ask town council.
So
The point of this is that there are a number of performance standards and criteria that have to be met in doing a site plan review. If the developer doesn't provide the evidence of conformance with those requirements, or if the planning board is unable to make the findings that they're in conformance, then the site plan review can't be approved.
So what as I said, so with the water protection, special permit, earth removal. We have nothing in our site plan to enforce that.
Well, are these environmental issues waived by virtue of what we're doing here?
Well, not
Don't
if
we
it's,
still have environmental
well,
stuff?
for Concom or DEP, but we have, we have a water resource protection overlay district, so we do stormwater management, we do underground recharge systems in our special permit. That, since we're zoning in that area, we cannot do.
Okay.
So that is my concern.
But if a site plan on its face damages the environment and or, you know, the drainage of the entire neighborhood, are we obliged to say, no, we don't care? I don't think so.
Well, I think that's why the state encouraged towns not to zone in those areas, that we have special
Yeah,
permitting
yeah.
for.
Yeah.
No, so let's clarify, so, essentially, you can still require, I was trying to point out, that they meet all of the standards, it's just not a special permit. They don't meet the standards, you either add it as a condition to the approval, or you deny it, and yes, you can deny site plan approval, most site plans. Bylaws, early ones were written as site plan review, and they didn't have approval requirements, they were like we were talking about, just kind of general. Let's look at stuff, and or, you know, the boards would have a short time period to. And the requirements were very strict, but if your bylaw is written well and tight, you can deny it for. Basically, you're saying that, like Chris pointed out, they have not met the performance standards. Write that in your decision.
But do you need to change this wording to say they're not required to apply for a special permit, but the conditions must be met in the site plan review? Because I think Mary's saying you don't
It
have.
says that
It
someplace.
says that.
So
And again, I've been asking for town council's opinion on this for a long time, so I'm anxious to get it because other towns have hit up against this and their town councils are giving reports that say the opposite of what is being said here, so I want clarity. I think that's very important, especially when we're waiving special permits. I don't want residents to think that there's something if there's not. I know we've taken out in this bylaw some of the site plan, and one of them being the aesthetic standards, which addresses the views and vistas and making sure it's compatible with the neighborhood. So I think there just needs to be a lot of clarity around site plan.
So I think that the state will not let us use special permit for this use. And so we have a site plan review requirement. It's the only tool we have, and EOHLC has said that this.
What are those three
And
areas
so-
covered in the site
So let
plan
me,
review?
so the criteria for in section 12.6.7
Okay.
include a whole bunch of things, including protection of adjacent areas against detrimental or offensive uses by light, sign, sight, sound, dust, vibration, convenience and safety, I'm paraphrasing, adequacy of facilities for handling, disposing of refuse and other products, environmental features, resiliency and adaptation to climate change, promotion of arrangement of structures within the site, coordination and improvement of traffic kinds of things, including wetlands, water courses, water supply, drainage, and compliances with all applicable sections of this bylaw. With a broad set of,
But can't you reference those three sections in the?
I thought we did.
We do, it's right here, proposed.
What line are you at, Mark?
137. Procedure and submission requirements, requirements to section 12.6.3.
Right.
Entire. Right. And sections 12.6.12. No apply.
right, so that the site plan review section of our bylaw applies, and it's the. While we might like to have special permit, it's not allowed.
What,
So-
I may be dense, but My concern is these sections are not in your site plan review. Those are sections of the bylaw that are being referenced, correct? 6.4, 10.1, and 10.3. And it's saying you won't require a special permit. But I'm saying shouldn't, which is what Mary said, shouldn't your site plan review include the
Include,
requirements of section 6.4, 10.1, and 10.3? So that you have the right under the site plan review to do the same review as you would, but just not under a special permit.
I think it's redundant, but it doesn't hurt.
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So I think that would, thank you, Sarah, I think that would move the needle. I think we need town council's input on, and again, I'm happy to send everybody the other town council's opinions, and actually EOHLC saying site plan review can only go so far. So I think for me, it's a huge area of concern. We've said that we're not including sections of our current site plan, which references the general standards, fiscal impact, topographical changes, earth removal and filling, aesthetic standards, and fiscal analysis. So we're not applying any of those site plan approval sections in this. So I think this becomes very light, and I think a lot of people are saying in town that don't worry, abutters will have rights, and they kind of won't. So I think that's very important to clarify.
Okay, so the sections that we should add, site plan review will consider sections.
Aren't we doing that on line 226, performance standards, there's a list of things.
And they're
It's
saying
in
shall
there.
not, section shall not apply.
So I think if we're gonna add it, we have to
No,
say,
Doesn't it say shall?
224. Following components of this section do not
So
apply.
it's just, 233, it says, for the purposes of this section, the criteria for granting the special permit below
Are
are
incorporated,
incorporated into the.
Okay,
planning
sorry.
Yeah,
board
yeah.
review
It's there.
process.
Sorry.
And so it references.
Yep, okay, so we're good.
but it's not in site plan in our bylaws.
That's all right. It's,
That's what we were trying to do.
this is bringing it into the site plan review.
But we could still get town council, because I don't think it has any teeth.
But absent saying that the standards apply to site plan review, we don't have a special permit ability. So I think we're. What other,
This is the
strongest
strongest
tool
tool
we
that we can
Yeah.
use in this particular situation.
And I understand that, and I understand its limitations, and I'm saying that's why the state advised not zoning in areas that would require these types of special permits. So I think we need to make sure we're covered.
What do you mean, make sure we're covered?
Well, we're doing all sorts of special permit for cell signaling, which is right next door to Beaver Dam. We're having independent consultants come in for stormwater management, for stormwater, for the overlay, water resource protection overlay district. And so the next lot over, we're saying we're not gonna require any of that.
that's not
Sorry,
true, that's not true, because stormwater is all in the general bylaw.
Yeah, they have.
So you can require outside consultants under site plan review.
Yeah.
Nothing
So
precludes
flood
you from doing it.
control and stormwater is definitely the general bylaw, so that's.
You can do
Yeah.
the exact same review. It's just not a special permit.
Yeah, it's not discretionary, you just can't say.
Can I just
What
ask
it
a
is.
question? Is there an issue with just getting town council to review it? And the only reason I ask is because Mary is citing voices in town that have an issue with this. And if we're able to just deflect that by saying town council reviewed it, why wouldn't we do that?
Well, town council is
town-
going to review. it.
Town council has all, they've already.
Yeah.
No, not a review, a decision of how much, say, site plan review will have in these instances.
The question is, we don't have another tool.
No, but
I
you
understand
ask
that, but I
the
wanted-
town council to say, how much information can you ask for from applicants on your site plan? is at the same level as you can ask for under a special permit. You're just not issuing a special permit.
Correct.
And how about since Mary's offering to send us links of
Yep.
other decisions in other towns, we just take a look at it and decide that. I mean, if it's a precedent that's set out there, why would we just review it?
Good suggestion.
I will send those.
Can you, send them to Mark or? And Mark will distribute it to everyone. Okay, good, thank you. Thank you, Peter. Design guidelines, section 9.4.9. A number of, Mark and Emily made a number of, in the red line copy, a number of sort of editorial improvements. So hopefully you reviewed those. On line 304, there's a stray F. Material. Three of one. Yeah. 9. We no longer have a. Oh, 9.4.5. Okay, any comments? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to, 9.4.10 affordability requirements. Line 507.
I had a question, I don't think the numbers. Same. But in 9.4.10 C.
What line number?
No,
523 in
the new one is
Starts on
starts at
520.
590.
523
revision.
Clean version. Division of Affordable Housing.
Oh, thank you. I just, there's the bottom down here says, I think it was just putting a placeholder in if we were doing the 10% or the 20%. It would look like that. should be
Oh,
removed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did that, we've already, it's approved.
Line 533.
Right, so that should be 20%.
530.
Oh, yes. At least 10%, so
Yeah.
we can just.
Does the building inspector
It could be
currently,
at least, right? Excuse me for interrupting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
does the building inspector currently do the administration of affordable housing units?
No.
So this will be new for them.
You're not doing administration with it. I mean, when somebody, anything that requires an affordability factor today, I believe, has to go through the planning board.
So it says the inspector
Right.
of building shall be responsible for administering and
to the planning board.
enforcing.
No, but Weagle asking question, so let's clarify that comes to the planning board if it's a.
Today, anything that requires affordable housing goes to the planning board.
Okay,
So my question was, the section 3 says that the building inspector will be responsible for administering and enforcing the requirements of this section.
As is the entire Bible.
So my understanding, I think through GAR, is that probably a lot of paperwork, a lot of follow-up, a lot of.
No, I don't think this applies to that. The only thing the building inspector would be responsible for is to ensure that the building permit being issued requires the requisite number of affordable units.
So.
It's up to the developer to deal with actually,
Right, so
And
if it's
site-
if it's a 5-unit building,
Yeah.
1 unit has to be affordable.
That's basically what. the
And we will have
So
site
who
plan
on the
review.
town side, make sure that happens, because I know we've had issues with like Powder House and things like that, where
Well, that's another matter. Powerhouse is a different story. I think that we, in this thing, we say that any units less than 4 units don't have to have an affordable.
yeah,
Over 4 units, 20% has to be affordable. Five or more, yeah. So I think the building inspector, when he looks at the plans, he says, and the affordable unit is.
And when we have site plan review.
Yeah.
It will
So
be on
that's, I
the,
think, but
Right.
he does not do the third-party advertising for affordable marketing purposes.
it's all the
and
development.
That's the developer. Yeah,
And I
Okay.
guess that means there's gonna be a lot more 4-unit than 5-unit.
Exactly.
Well, that's fine.
I guess I was just questioning who on the town side makes sure that then it gets on the SHI and all.
that man.
Okay.
Gordon just got a big house.
okay,
It would be a condition of approval. That they follow through with, just like you would write for the 40B. The developer's
Lottery
responsible
and
for
the-
doing all the work. You just kind of monitor to make sure it follows.
You probably need to create, the town probably needs to create some type of form that the developer would be required to submit to the town planner. To show, to demonstrate with all the paperwork they've done, so then the town can apply for the SHI.
okay.
And maybe make it subject to an occupancy permit, I don't know.
Okay, any other changes, through line 552?
I have one just suggestion. I'm looking at the Beaver Dam building. There'll probably be a larger, more tighter massing this, and we allow for flat roofs on those areas here. But yet the right, this is a really picky point, but the type of material or last flower for roofing is not amenable to a flat roof. And can we have a flat roof, and does it have to have overhangs? Does it, more often than not, buildings like that, having done a couple myself, or metal panel siding, and they weren't collaborative, they weren't cementitious, they weren't the typical thing, but they were appropriate for buildings of this type and size. We don't make mention of that. Not that it's a big deal, but I'm sure that some developer's not gonna build a colonial mass housing up in the corner of nowhere. They're probably gonna build something that's more appropriate to them.
I have some, I thought that you guys would have thought
No,
about
go
this more
ahead.
than I.
Go ahead.
I guess my point is these are design guidelines. And that our architectural team, would like to see it be more of a colonial
Right.
look.
Even
Then-
up there.
Yes.
Yes,
And
and
the
that,
residents
and
in our
as a
town
resident,
would like to
right.
see.
That's the feedback we've had, and that they are guidelines, and there's a design review board that will weigh in on whether or not metal panels are.
I get it, but metal panels is what's being used almost
I know,
everywhere.
Then they'll have to build something else.
Right.
There,
They're trying
there's
to,
always that.
this is to get the best we can for our town and the people who live here, not for people who wanna come and build something.
Okay.
We're
Just
complying under duress. We're complying under duress.
Meeting the letter of the law.
And HLC didn't say you have to allow metal panels in Beaver Dam.
Right, they didn't have any comments on the design guidelines.
yeah, no, nor would they. It's just my opinion here. If something built up there would be, it's out of the town. It doesn't affect it. There is no neighbors
But
to
it's still
relate
in
to,
it.
except
It is.
for cell signaling.
Well, were you here during the SLV 40B?
I was here, but not really here, I guess.
Yeah, so,
Same question.
But I think to your point, a developer could easily say, what's being recommended is cost prohibitive, I'd rather do the metal.
Something
and they will
something
do the metal.
simple, steel frame, metal panel, multiple textured, some siding. fenestration varies a little bit from a colonial or a more traditional pattern, but nonetheless, I just.
Yeah,
think
so
about it.
oftentimes in big projects, there's a lot of give and take.
We allow flat roofs, so anticipate that something will happen.
Oh, but it's now 3.5 stories.
Right.
Yeah.
Not 4, so
Yep.
we're gonna probably wanna go
Into
the
the
height.
extra half.
So which means that the sort of fixed roofs, variation.
Step back.
Probably not.
Probably not.
I'll probably go flat and you get the full area again,
Then
but
we'll-
nonetheless, it's just a point
Okay,
of
yeah,
view.
it's a good question.
I think what
Okay.
it does do is give us a little more leverage.
Yeah,
Sit
I'm
down.
not saying change anything, but anticipate if someone decides to build up there, they'll probably wanna be building more what they have built in the past, what's kind of contemporary look.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this? Now we have, the other thing, we have is any comment on the additions to section, was this, did you take verbatim what town council put in, or this just, maybe they were the same?
Oh, see, yes, that's correct.
Okay. Any comments on that? Great. So the other two pieces for public hearing that were in our packet were, which I believe we had voted to not move forward to town meeting, which was the general language to amend the general bylaw, the zoning bylaws, preamble and the marijuana. Do we want to, the marijuana section? Amendment, we did that.
Didn't we determine that was redundant?
I think we said it's not applicable
Right,
because
because
there's
it's,
a lot of other places.
Because we already covered.
Right. okay, so we don't need to move that forward here. Okay, so at this point, I would like to take, so I just in summary, I believe we have asked to get clarity on the affordable definition, affordability definitions. We've added, wanting to, besides some typos, adding a definition of base lot and additional lot area. And ask for town council just to help us understand the limits and of site plan review as they apply. And that doesn't affect the language. We didn't make any suggested changes to the language. And then we are adding the Sarah Malish amendment of the division of property lots in any charge shall meet the minimum lot size and frontage requirements of the underlying zoning district. I believe that those are the only substantive changes, as well as the making sure we have 20% affordability in those two, line 533. With, if I'm correct, I would like a motion to ask Mark to make those changes and make it available to the public and post a public hearing to review the article Community Housing Overlay District on October 28th at 7 p.m. or 6:30, 7.
Let's do it at 7, just in case you have.
Public
weather
hearings
small.
typically are at 7, so let's do that. Do I have a motion to that effect?
So yes, I just want to point out that the task force really can vote on this, but we don't. It's the planning board.
We don't
decision. We don't. we're just
So I'm really
advising.
asking for a planning board to,
So move.
okay, and do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion from the task force in particular on the motion? And I guess any other discussion from the planning board?
Let's ask a question. I don't know if it's, you maybe just have to answer it after, but can an as of right apply for a variance? A by right?
I believe,
Yes, this question before,
Variance, what?
setbacks,
I believe the answer was yes,
we asked this.
much to my consternation.
Yes. Okay, thank you. The other thing, my comment would be that
Great.
a year and a half ago or whenever, we asked the task force to come forward with a zoning bylaw that complied with section 3A that we've. commend you for your hard work to do
You're here.
just that. So thank you to all of you, well, Barry and Mark for all of this hard work. I'll take a roll call vote. Chris,
Yes.
Sue,
Yes.
Mary,
No.
Peter, Gordon,
Yes.
and chair votes yes. And Laura is absent, so thank you. The next item on our agenda is any other MBTA updates that you need to be aware of.
I don't think so.
Okay. Any public comment? If you're on Zoom and have a public comment, feel free just to unmute and speak up.
I can also raise the
Okay,
hand.
yeah. Just wanna make sure if we're on another screen or something. Okay, hearing none. Gail, do we have any minutes tonight?
No. Neither of you.
Okay. Any other business?
Can I ask one question?
Absolutely.
The next steps, we're literally minutes away from on public or something, what are they? Just for my edification, how this is all going to play out.
So,
So, so the next step is on Friday, it comes out, the hearing notice and this, these edits, the full version.
and the zoning map.
And the zoning maps. Entire package will be filed with the town clerk. So then the public hearing comes out for paper, notice, and we hold a public hearing on the 28th.
Before we move on, where would that public hearing be in format? Be in there?
Like a regular
Just like-
public hearing, like the cell signal.
I'll be on
And-
Zoom.
and May I ask you a question about that? Will that be a dry run of what the town meeting will look like?
No.
You know?
It will be a public hearing about the zoning. We'll kind of walk through boring zoning.
Well,
And with us. I think that it's my opinion that the task, maybe a quick summary of the, very quick summary, but the task force has held so many public forums that I think,
It would probably be similar to
Yeah.
tonight, where we'll run through the bylaw, take comment on each section. They probably have an audience, both in person and as we get through it, and at the end, we close the public hearing. The board would vote to submit the bylaw to the select board. Or to be placed on the warrant for the fall town meeting, that would be your vote. And subsequently, the planning board would have to vote a recommendation to town meeting. Could be that night. Usually is that right after the public hearing. Which is going to be the planning board's report to town meeting. The select board would review it. We vote to place it on the warrant for the town meeting. Since we've already held a public hearing. We just wait to see what happens.
There will be a public forum after the public hearing, probably a week after. I think we have a tentative date of November 7th. And that's a much more informal, tell us what you think, back and forth, explain it. Questions and answers. Not a
Will it
formal
consist of
public hearing.
presentation, if you will, by us, not all of us, but by
Yes,
us,
yeah,
of what it's all about.
yes.
And then that will be somewhat repeated at the town meeting as well.
Well, there are time constraints at the town meeting.
I'm meeting for 3 minutes to make it.
I mean, we will have more than that.
That's unfair.
No, he has indicated we'll have more than that, but there are time constraints at the town meeting.
The reason why I ask is this is a complex issue. I mean, I just became on the planning board about 3 or 4 months ago and been sat in amongst these things, and I'm not unaware of all the real estate thing, but this is a complex issue here. And hopefully, I mean, I read Greg's write up on the paper, and I think it was fascinating reading, Greg, thank you for that. That was very good at clarifying what needs to happen, you know, one simple, one-page front thing, it was great. So it's the big presentation.
Are you volunteering to do it?
No, I believe you.
We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, maybe we can-
Okay, any other, business?
Well, I'd just like to echo what you said, Sarah. I am so impressed by the dedication and honest, candid efforts of everybody on this task force in getting to what could have been an impossible spot. So it makes me feel great about being a citizen.
Yeah.
Well, can I say something? One of the things I think that made the task force successful is the very different places all the members came from. If we didn't have that diversity of interests and backgrounds, it would have been very difficult to do. So my hat's off to everybody also for pitching in and pulling together something that looked impossible. And here it is, we're done.
All right.
Right.
Let's make a set a record here and make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Okay, thank you, everybody, for your hard work. Thank you for the people online.
We should have champagne.
Right, can you?
Maybe that's it.
Sarah, can you? Here's Nick.